It's safe to say that the season, much like last, hasn't quite gone according to what many of us had hoped and or predicted. In hindsight, it seemed like it was always going to go this way. I'll take you back, shall we? Not that we want to go back, but I'll take you back. It's late May of 2023 and speculation has been running rampant over a vacancy at Chelsea Football Club. Pochettino is the number one choice, whether you agreed with it or not. For me, I was hesitant, but quietly so. I really wasn't keen on the obvious aspects. Former Tottenham, unsuccessful in England, not entirely successful in France, despite having one of the most star-studded teams of the modern era. That said, I was part of many episodes of the Byline podcast with Alex Goldberg as editor, and as such, I was exposed to many opinions from the likes of Michel Vorm, Julian Loren, Martin Tyler, Ricky Lambert. The list goes on of all the people who have either worked with him, worked for, or worked whilst analysing the man himself. They all definitively claimed that he is the ideal man for the job, for the most part. All these young new players that Chelsea have bought with a manager so synonymous with young talent, among many other talents within his arsenal, excuse the pun, I just haven't seen anything to suggest he is anything that any of these people have claimed him to be. And research and history would suggest, sure, in the past, at other clubs, these points are true. But in his first season, it's anything but. This season, we have seen some of the worst performances of any Chelsea side in the last 25 years. Lack of pattern play, lack of structure, lack of guidance, lack of anything. Unparalleled unpredictability. Drawing against a 10-man relegation battling Burnley side to then capturing one of the most emotional and unbelievable comebacks, showing grit, determination, intensity, and intention against Manchester United. All the qualities you would need in a team, to then 3 days later drawing against the very bottom of the league.
It's a Chelsea thing,
as Omid Dajali once said. I've stressed all season that predictability is far and few between, but one thing that is predictable throughout this season, and has been the whole time, is showing up in the big games, which isn't something we did last season, so that's a pro, I would suggest, but crumbling against the conventionally easy opponents when opportunity arises to capitalise. We have had a severe lack of opportunities to challenge for Europe this season, maybe one or two, one being the start of the season, quite frankly, and then number two was hushed very quickly by the final whistle against Sheffield United. For me, anyway, I think that's it. 8 games remain at the point of recording this. We still have Arsenal, Tottenham, Aston Villa, when adrenaline should be running rampant in the squad following a huge result against United. For me, again, it's over. The European hope, it's over. Not just in terms of Europe, but for Pochettino as well. It's done. For me, it's done. It's over. For Pochettino, it's safe to say that even those who doubted that Pochettino would be the man to drive this team forward are surprised. They too are surprised at just how bad things have been and continue to be. For myself and many, it seems like severe levels of puppetry is at play here at Chelsea. Man management seems non-existent, at least on the face of things, and the message he gives out, whilst maybe lost in translation at times with his intention, I suppose, it's hard to take anything he said seriously at this stage. 1 minute it's trust the process. The next week it's we need to be Chelsea. And then again, depending on the result, it's we can't be the Chelsea of 5, 10, 15 years ago. When, conversely, we've seen those performances. We might not have been getting wins, but we've been getting those performances out of this Chelsea side. The intention of the message changes based on the previous result. When things are good, it's really good. When things aren't so much, it's always, always, always blame them for being young rather than blame me for my approach on the game. The substitutions, 2 centre-backs on for 2 centre-backs. I just don't understand some of these things. the approach from Pochettino has been bizarre, to say the least. A lot of the time, it seems like certain players, Sterling, mainly the main one, it is just getting game time because it's part of his contract, rather than, fitting the job. It just screams that he's being told being told what to say and when to say it, do what to do and when to do it. Do you know what I mean? It's one extreme to another, week after week. For me, his days are numbered. They've been numbered for a while. However, I feel that no one truly knows the number left. And again, regardless, it's up to those upstairs to tell us what is and what isn't to be at Chelsea Football Club. To which I get to the board. The board, data, lack of communication, stubbornness, law of averages that data suggests we should or should not or will not end up being in the right place by the end of their whatever data it tells them, and we will stand by that no matter what. No matter what. Come rain or shine, we stand by the data. If we should have won based on the data, then it's a win. That's basically what they're trying to tell you. Seems to be the message from the board. That's what I've been getting over the last year and so on. 1 year prior to the assignment of Pochettino saw the arrival of this group of goons, but still saw the arrival of the board. And for many of us, during a time where it seemed that the world was against Chelsea Football Club again, once again, there were some who tried to see, that they tried their hardest to see the light through the clouds against all odds. A new beginning, to say the least, and hopefully one that would see the club rejuvenated and ready to tackle those who had tried to take us down and even attempt to collapse the club as a whole. To many, it was a possibility that Chelsea could go under, and not for the first time, but for the first time in 25 odd years. Hundreds of millions have been spent. Since then, that's all we've heard. 1 billion times. Hundreds of millions have been spent. Countless claims to FFP have been posed at us. We've bashed them away left and right. They've been coming at us at all angles with the same old story and the same old being put in the same boat alongside Manchester City, which, as we all know, has 115 charges. Yet Chelsea, without a single to its name as of recording this, are lumped alongside them as always. Whether the signings succeeded or failed, it seems, or it remains to be seen if they will succeed, but we've got them on 9-year contracts, so who cares? Either way, we would have a spotlight cast on us like never before, even past the Roman Abramovich stage of buying who we wanted to buy. And just kind of getting on with it, and it worked. And this board seems to have tried to do the exact same thing in a little bit of a different way, but it hasn't worked out, has it? At least not for now. And during this time, we've seen an absolute circus at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea have always had a certain attention drawn on them, but this time it's a little bit different. Sponsorship campaigns from movie scenes during the matches to bedtime stories. It's one thing after another. Merchandise after merchandise. It just never ends. We've never seen so much apparel. And whilst, yes, it's clear that they are attempting any and all avenues to claim back the investment in as quick as time as possible, there are pressing issues on the pitch and off the pitch that still remain unclear and unaddressed, as the board near on refused to address the fans. A side with such young talent riddled with injuries rotting from the inside out, or so it would seem. A training facility once praised for being the host of one of the fittest squads in the world at times, now seemingly a graveyard for talent for some that have barely even seen the pitch. Where are they? What's going on? Tell us. What is causing these issues that we have never seen in Cobham's history, or at least recent history? Football driven by data, and we're told week in, week out that the data says we should be winning and not conceding and scoring and doing this, that, and everything else. But the fact of the matter is, data doesn't speak, actions speak. And the actions on the pitch are saying we are not improving as a collective at all. It's unfair on the players to praise them 1 week for how well they fought back, but then a few days later, when we crumble due to quite obviously poor man management, among other things as well, it's down to the age of the player and lack of experience rather than the obvious elephant in the room. Dropping points to relegation battling teams, either side of a fantastic comeback victory against a top six side, in a victory we've not seen since 2017, is not down to the age of the player. We were missing some of our most experienced players in that game. So it never came into that. It wasn't like fighting young players, was it? If the board, if the manager, if the staff can't get behind the players, no matter the age, to maintain the adrenaline, maintain the vision, to see that victories are required after a result of that magnitude, with the value it holds in regards to Europe and the table as a whole, then the man steering the ship is at fault. The men allowing the man to steer the ship is even more at fault. Stubbornness and righteous attitude from the likes of Igbali, etc., has been going on from day one. Sacking Tuchel was a statement piece to let the fans know we are in charge. Again, among other issues at play, but they took that and ran with it, and it was a statement piece to say, hey, we're in charge. We are the captain now. We are in charge. Allowing Pochettino to remain manager after the ineptitude that we've seen from him this season is the same attitude that we saw at the start. The fans to those upstairs are not in control. We are not in control. We have no bearing on what happens at the club, so it seems at the moment. Sure, we've scored more, but we've also conceded more than we did last season in the entirety of the season. We're in just as bad a position as we were last season, and yes, there are chances. There are chances to maybe vie for that hone in on that European spot, but then we come up against a team in 20th place and we absolutely piss it up the wall. If we continue to allow mid-table mediocrity to be acceptable, then that is what we will remain. Being force-fed this idea that we must accept the process, that we must lower our standards and lower our expectations. How long can we continue to do that and accept the same results week in, week out? A process should involve improvement. And yes, we're scoring more, but we're conceding more than ever. There has been no improvement. And we're relying on a 21-year-old kid. Despite youth being the problem, youth is also becoming the resolution in this scenario. It's a bit of a catch-22 because they're saying one thing, but the same thing is being the resolve. If we finish this season 8th or lower, how in good conscience can we as Chelsea fans genuinely sit there at the beginning of next season and predict that we finish in the top 6 when we've been lurking in the depths for the last 2 years? So what's next? What's next for Chelsea? I'm stumped, personally, at this point as to what can be done to pull this back. There are a few things. Dramatic? Am I being dramatic? I don't think so. As of recording, we're currently 1 year and 317 days without a trophy under the new ownership, which unsurprisingly is the same time that they have been in charge. It's been 2 years, 317 days since we've won a trophy last. I feel that the disconnect between the club and fans has truly never been greater than it currently is. There is such a divide. It is outrageous how bad it is right now. So realistically, what can be done to rectify what is going on, and what can be done to prevent us descending lower and lower and lower and just becoming a mid-table side? Because that's the reality of it. That is the reality of it. And again, to you, the fans, the ones that are projecting toxic positivity rather than, toxic negativity. Toxic positivity, just being like, yeah, go for it. Pochettino, give him all the time he needs, and just praying, hoping that the shit sticks. I just don't see it. I just cannot for the life of me see the route that we're going at the moment will eventually work without a few tweaks at the very least, which, again, as we know, I'm going to get into it. First of all, I revert back to the same old excuse we hear from Pochettino week in, week out, whenever we don't get 3 points, and that is that the side is too young. But also, bear in mind, Our best players by a landslide have been some of our youngest. Cole Palmer, Malo Gusto, Levi Colwill, Georgi Petrovic. And then let's also not forget that this excuse means nothing. Absolutely nothing when you consider, yes, we are the second youngest squad in the league. Arsenal are third. Tottenham are fourth. With that said, if this issue is such a big one, recruit more experienced players. Preferably experienced players who have experience in the Premier League. The biggest obstacle with this idea, however, is the board. They've made no secret that they want to keep the squad young as possible. Longer contracts, amortization and all that bollocks, and that the idea that older talent isn't appealing to their philosophy. But they're going to have to lump it if we want to succeed. But they don't. I don't think they want us to. For some reason. The difference that 2, 3 experienced players can bring to this squad will be unbelievable in the short term, and then obviously in the long term as a result, because the players will learn. Look, one player in Thiago Silva, and he was here before these goons, by the way, a striker as well, ideally one that can find the net. And whilst Jackson certainly has done that this season better than any other striker since Costa, at least kind of Tammy Abraham as well, but I feel he's been better suited supporting rather than being the target man. Another point, let's not forget that Bowley will be making way for a replacement, except that won't be happening until 2027, will it? So that means another 3 years of his input. Another downer on the state of things. The reliance on teams above us hitting a poor run of form themselves to allow us to capitalise cannot and should not be a thing. As one, it's unlikely that it's ever going to happen. And 2, we can't capitalise to save our lives as it is. So it's not really an option. It's not an option. For me, obviously, there is still some time left this season to scrape a European spot. Dropping points the other day, however, hasn't filled me with much optimism, especially with games coming up against Arsenal, Tottenham, Villa, West Ham, Brighton, etc. All sides fighting their own battles above us in the league. So when you put that alongside games against Everton, against Nottingham Forest, 2 sides fighting to stay up, that really only leaves us with the final game of the season against Bournemouth, which, let's be honest, we'll probably drop points against as well. If we somehow, some way, win the FA Cup, I will be astonished. But realistically, it may be our only hope at silverware in the next few years.